Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen neighbor stories. In this video, a ridiculous Karen tried to break into my pool and I ended up having to pepper spray her. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story starts like this. You can trust two types of people to be honest in this world: drunk people and children. I always thought this was a comical turn of phrase without much legitimacy, and then I moved into my new home and learned it pretty quickly. So I was looking to move, and one of the houses that I looked at belonged to an older woman who was moving to assisted living because it was getting hard to live on her own. I actually still visit her occasionally, and she is an amazing person. I ended up choosing her home, and one important feature of it was the pool in the backyard. The previous homeowner, being the saint that she was, allowed the neighborhood to use her backyard freely as she had no use for it. However, I'm quite a bit younger and I like to keep a small vegetable garden, like to have free reign of my pool and enjoy privacy without having to keep all my curtains drawn. That is a whole lot of reasoning just to pretty much state I'm not okay with the neighborhood freely using my pool. When I first moved in, I tried to get a word around naturally, but I had a few people who missed the memo and actually ended up in my backyard. I was not rude at all, I just let them know that the house had changed hands and the backyard was not free reign anymore. I even added a sign on the gate and still a few people showed up. One of these was Karen and her children. Now, I actually like Karen's children. I've spoken to them plenty during these incidents in my backyard, as well as when I see them around the neighborhood since they know me. They seem to like me too and have no desire to invade my space. If anything, after the second time I had to kick them out of my backyard when they finally heard me actually say that the backyard was off limits for them. I don't think they want to have to do anything with it, but their mom is so horribly offended. So then I added a padlock to my gate. The first thing that happens within a few days of the padlock is that I have Karen at my doorstep. She asks what is happening with the pool and why is it off limits. I sigh, realize she's gonna play stupid if I claim I've explained this before, and go through the whole spiel about how the house has switched hands and as a result I don't want people having free access to my backyard. The previous owner had no real use for it and if anything, benefited from having the energy around, but I need my privacy and have actual uses for the backyard and the pool for myself. Karen responded with arguments and a belligerent entitled attitude. I asked why she didn't have her kids with her and if she had meant to bring them to the pool. This stopped her short and she mumbled something I couldn't hear and then finally gave up. A few days went by peacefully. I considered this a good sign, considering I thought I was in the adult world where things work logically. After all, the rest of the entire neighborhood had the good sense to listen to a person who simply wanted their property to be their property. It is a few evenings later when I hear some strange sounds that seem to be coming from the gate to the backyard. I assume it has to be the wind or a raccoon or something, and I just don't want to be bothered to investigate it. If it's anything other than nature, then the sign and the padlock speak better than my English will. Not to mention, during the middle of a summer day, I at least get why a grown woman would insist on using this pool so she doesn't have to pay for the public one. When it's getting dark, then I just have to hope that there's not anyone being that strange. The sounds eventually go on long enough that I figured the raccoon would have had the time to get the gate open. The trees are pretty still, so the wind is not likely to be the issue. I step out onto my back patio and, lo and behold, there stands Karen at my wrought iron gate. She is attempting to prop the gate open. I hope your plan is not to try to slide through that tiny gap, Karen. I doubt your youngest could squeeze their head through the gap you have made. The little jump I got was satisfying until I remembered it meant this Karen was somehow shocked that the owner of the property she was trespassing into was on the premises. Karen straightened and suddenly had an angry finger pointing through the gate. "This is an outrage! I should call someone and get you taken in. Is it really so hard for you to allow children this great pleasure? What kind of a heartless shrew are you to make us all go to the public pool? Do you know how crowded it can get? And how much it costs for just a few children to go?" I couldn't help myself and I said, "No, I don't know. I have my own pool." The aghast look on her face was so worth it. I turned and walked back to my back door. If I hear much more out here, then I will have to call the cops. I would call pest control, but you only look like a raccoon and I wouldn't want to force them to deal with something worse than a feral animal. Despite what I said, I was a bit concerned when things actually went silent. This did not seem like the right moment for her to suddenly come to her senses. You don't just see reason after the way she was behaving. Still, I figured it couldn't not be horrible for me to just leave it as it was for now. What was the worst that could possibly happen? Well then, I heard a quiet knocking on my front door about 30 minutes later. When I opened the door, I knew it had gotten much worse than I expected. Karen's oldest son, who was about 11, stood on my doorstep in his PJs in the middle of the night. "Oh P, I saw Mom get Dad's bolt cutters out of the garage and I think she plans to use them on your gate." And yes, I do really wonder what it is that keeps this kid's dad sane. Maybe he just works all hours of the day. The less time he spends with Karen, the less he must want to take those bolt cutters through the old ball and chain called holy matrimony. Thank you for letting me know. You go on home, and if you see any sirens, I want you to send your dad straight over. He's asleep right now, he has to wake up early. I replied, if you see sirens, then I promise he will want to wake up. Karen's son nodded at me and scurried away. I watched him cross the street just to be safe and then went back inside. I turned off any lights I still had on and waited outside so I could hear exactly when Karen appeared, and appear she did. I actually saw a light and heard her messing with the bolt cutters. I gave her what would turn out to be a few seconds too long and turned on a porch light to reveal myself. I stepped in front of the gate and crossed my arms as she looked up and rolled her eyes. "Karen, stop this! You're an adult, are you not?" "If you were an adult, you would just allow the neighborhood to go on how it always did, instead of being so certain the world revolves around you," she snapped back. Then she went back to grimacing at the bolt cutters. I thought this whole time that she was trying to cut the padlock, as that would be number 1, the easiest part of the gate to cut, and number 2, would not permanently damage another adult's property. I realized as she actually started leaning her weight into the bolt cutters that she had it positioned to completely shear the latch that held the gate closed. Before I could say anything further, the bolt cutters snapped shut due to Karen leaning on them with her hefty weight. She stumbled into the gate. As it threw itself open, I yelled, "I have pepper spray and I will defend myself." She caught her balance. "Fat chance of that, you coward!" and then came towards me where I stood with a whole lecture prepared. Well, the only issue was I had brought my keys and was just being approached by a woman who damaged my property in order to trespass. I won't say I planned this, and I definitely won't say that I was lying when I claimed fear for my personal safety. What I will say is that Karen hit the ground hard after the pepper spray hit her eyes. I unfortunately did not get to watch because as soon as I pressed down on the catch, I averted my face and covered my eyes with a sleeve. Still, the sound was that of mountains crashing to the earth. Karen had one thing in common with mountains, and that was IQ. I called the cops and paramedics came as well. Karen's husband came over and sighed when he saw the state of the situation. Karen stayed in a hospital room that night, and unfortunately, her bail was not too high, so she didn't have to spend the next night in a holding cell. I did press charges though, and holding cell or not, she would be repairing my iron bars made to keep her out, or at least paying to repair. I really don't want to see Karen attempting skilled manual labor though. Assault was a hard sell, but I could use self-defense to make sure my pepper spraying would not come back to bite me, and the breaking and entering were slam dunks. Her husband seemed so exhausted from the entire incident, I definitely felt sorry for the man. He seems like a good man and a great father. Someone had to keep their kids' heads on straight, and it certainly was not Karen. And yeah guys, if you enjoyed the Karen stories, please don't forget to like the video. And now let's move on to a very interesting relationship story that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "My husband wants me to quit my job now that we have children and he makes enough money." I love my work and the thought of being a housewife is torture to me. If I don't quit though, he is leaving me. For anonymity, I cannot go into details, but my husband, 34 male, has developed something in IT that is well known and it made him rich. I, 38 female, am a chef and I make probably 100th of what he does. It doesn't matter for me though, however, because I love my job. We have a great life together. We had our first child, a baby girl, 3 years ago, and our twin boys are 9 months old. I got a few months left of my maternity leave, and with the country closing up again because of the new variant, I started getting worried that my workplace won't take me back. I voiced my worries to my husband a couple days ago, and he just shrugged and said it's not like we needed the money. I was confused and told him that I knew that it was not about the money though. He just shrugged. I was a bit annoyed to be honest, because I thought he didn't think it was a big deal that I became out of work. Yesterday I was still thinking about it, so I decided to talk to him again. He was confused and told me that I should instead be happy that I could spend more time with my babies, and he asked me why I insisted on working when we have 3 small children and he made enough money for both of us. He did not like me working 4 to 5 evenings a week, including 1 to 2 weekends a month. I told him that I love my job and that I'm good at it. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now, and that is just the thought of not doing anything for the rest of my life is suffocating to me. He was visibly upset by then, and he accused me of loving my job more than my babies and him. I could always cook at home for the family, and if I was worried I would lose my independence, he could transfer the same amount I earned from my job to my private account monthly. I started crying and he kissed me and hugged me and told me that he loved me, but he's been thinking of this since our girl was born and he didn't like me coming home late at night. So I needed to choose between my job or being a family. I was startled. Did he mean it as an ultimatum? He did. He actually wants me to be a housewife or we go our separate ways. I went to my mom's place first thing this morning. She listened to me talking and crying, but when I finished, she was not indignant on my behalf like I expected. She was silent for a while and then she asked me to think carefully about my next move. If we got divorced, I need to think about my babies. I will never be able to give them the life their dad is giving them and I might lose them because of it. It is worth it to change their lives so drastically and have them live in 2 separate houses? All that for a job. I've worked my whole adult life and I could just see this as an early retirement. Many dreamed of this, why couldn't I enjoy it? I was not expecting my mom saying these things. She has always been the strong independent woman who raised us to be independent and taught me to never rely 100% on anyone other than myself. Hearing her say all that made me question my feelings. Before I met her, I was totally sure I was right being hurt and angry, but now I think maybe I'm overreacting and that my husband's request was not that unreasonable. But if that's the case, why do I feel like my heart is swollen in my throat? Why does it feel like he made this ultimatum because he knew he has power and he's using it? And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP is not in the right here and that the husband actually makes a valid point, or is he overstepping boundaries? I would 100% agree with OP that she should not quit her job, and what the husband is doing here is really a pathetic power game if you ask me. You should never force someone or guilt trip someone into giving up what they love, especially if that is work. You know, sometimes I'm thinking if I would win like $1 million or a few $1 million or something in a lottery, would I still do YouTube? And my immediate thought always is, of course I would not stop doing YouTube, however, what I would probably stop is playing this stupid algorithm game. You know, if you see changes in the YouTube algorithm, then you change like certain titles, you make the thumbnails different and so on. So I would probably cut down on that a little bit and just continue with reading stories, but without all the other fluff involved. Anyway, OP further said, throw any suggestions or advice my way and please be honest. Now an update to the story. I've posted here about 2 weeks ago about my husband not wanting me to go back to work after maternity leave, and I got a lot of real good advice. So to make things clear, I don't work 4 to 5 days plus weekends, I work 35 to 45 hours per week in total, and sometimes it is during the weekend. Staying at home mom is not normal in my country, daycare is free, and we don't have a nanny. I'm saying this because I want you to understand why I was taken aback about this whole situation. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to stay-at-home moms. And yeah, I want to make that very clear as well. I have a deep respect about stay-at-home moms, but I also deeply respect people who raise kids and also go to work at the same time. Work outside of the house, I mean. And I feel like OP's husband especially is disrespecting the latter. Either way, my husband cannot get sole custody just because of his wealth. Or because of my work hours. It doesn't work like this here, thank God. But I'm thankful for those who expressed worry about that because I know this is the sad reality in other parts of the world. So to the update, I've had long talks with my husband about all of what happened, trying to understand his POV. I've told him that I cannot see myself as a housewife ever, but that I'm willing to start looking for jobs with better hours so that I can finally start my own restaurant. Which, by the way, I feel like is not better hours, because if you have your own restaurant, that will most likely be the biggest stress and the most hours worked you can imagine. Anyway, I could also start searching for a location in office buildings and start a lunch spot, so then I don't need to work evenings and weekends. He did not seem happy at all with that suggestion. He asked me why I'm so insistent on going back to work. He said these last months have been the happiest of his life, coming home from work every day to his family, and that he thought I'm happy too. And well, I am. I love being with my babies all day, but just because I'm enjoying my maternity leave doesn't mean I don't want to go back to work. In fact, I'm enjoying every minute now because I know it is not permanent. We had a row. He said he has always felt that I'm scared of him making much more money and that I'm scared of being dependent on him, so if I'm insisting on working because I don't want to be dependent, then he could pay me 10x what I earn to stay home. I started crying and told him I'm not gonna be a housewife and I don't accept ultimatums, so he should do what he felt fit. He said he's tired of going around feeling that his wife is intimidated by his success. He's doing this for both of us. I gotta admit that I'm sometimes scared of him having more power than me, and he said it's all in my head, but really, would he ever dare to ask me to quit my job if he didn't feel he had the power to do it? Could I ask him to quit his job with that same ease? There's no denying the power dynamics in our relationship, and I have all the right to be scared of it. So there was no progress really. No matter how much I explain myself, he doesn't seem to understand me, and probably he feels the same way with me. It feels like we're on different levels. I've suggested counseling, and he said he will think about it. Now we are just civil to each other, but we don't talk much and we have not been intimate since I first brought up going back to work. I love him and I miss him. I don't want it to end, but the ball is in his court now. My mom is very angry with me, by the way. We have not spoken for a week and I don't know what to do with her either. Another update to the story. I won't be able to make any more updates because you're only allowed one. However, this is not a big update, so I thought I could just add it here. So my husband and I talked yesterday for the first time in 2 weeks and he was the one who initiated the conversation. I saw my chance to try to find out why he's behaving like this and at the same time make sure that he knows that I'm not backing up. I told him that while I'm enjoying my maternity leave, the thought of it being for the rest of my life suffocated me. I suffer from severe claustrophobia, by the way. I don't if it has anything to do with this. I asked him why he's doing this and he knew my job was important to me, so why was he making this impossible request when he knew it would mean the end of us? If you're having second thoughts about our marriage and want an out, please just tell me the truth. He became very upset and accused me of trying to gaslight him. He said his reasons are legit, there's nothing wrong with wanting his wife to be there for family, and the children won't stop needing me just because they went to school. I started crying, sorry I'm a crybaby, and I told him if this is over, he should know it is all on him. He started yelling, no, it was because I'm too stubborn and too self-involved to actually take a second and think about his wishes. I wanted to leave because I couldn't be with him anymore, but he said that it would be more convenient if he did. He has moved to our city apartment. I feel lost and hurt and I love him so much, but I don't think continuing this relationship is healthy for either of us. My heart is breaking for my children. I don't know what to do. For now, I'll just sit tight and wait for him to send me the divorce papers. Thank you again for the advice. It helped a lot. P.S. My mom was here yesterday. We talked a lot and she's finally getting on my side. I knew that when it came to it, she will be on my side and I'm so grateful. And now another update. We are separating. Thank you for the support. My husband and I are separating. This is what he wants. As I suspected, this was more than me just going back to work. He's been feeling resentment towards a lot of things about me. Many of them I cannot change and the rest I don't want to change. It is not his or my fault. We are just not compatible with each other anymore. I still have 14 months with my babies. Afterwards, all children are big enough for shared custody. I'm staying in the big house for now, but after the divorce I'm gonna move back to the city. I've been talking to my boss about my job. She will help me find a schedule around having the children, so maybe I will work lunch hours the weeks I have them. My ambition is to still open my own, but maybe a bit further in the future. I still love him. I thought we were inseparable, but when he started resenting the very same things he loved about me, I knew this was hopeless. It sucks big time and hurts like hell, but here we are. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/I don't work here lady. It is titled, "Oh no, you're going to get me fired!" So I went into our local grocery store to pick up several items. I wander down the aisle and this woman starts stomping her foot and pointing at a can. As I walk by her, my honest thought was this woman had mental health issues and was out with an aide. Just as I pass her, she starts yelling, "Oh, are you just gonna ignore me?" And I was. I had stopped to grab a few items off the shelf and she says, "Hey, I'm talking to you." We are the only ones in the aisle. So I point at myself and shrug my shoulders, assuming her worker will step in and stop this behavior. But no, she actually starts in with, "You need to grab this can for me, it's falling over." To which I replied, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." She fires back with just, "Because you're not clocked in, it doesn't mean you don't work here." No, that's exactly what it means. Even if I did, nobody answers to stomping feet. I figured I would grab the bare necessities and get the heck out of there as she starts shouting that she's the #1 customer and I'm gonna get fired for speaking to her like that. As I'm cashing out, I hear her berating the manager on duty and demanding I be fired for swearing at her, etc., that her and her husband won't be treated like that. I told the cashier I was the one they were yelling about and I wished them good luck. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.